Chapter 2. Chao Luoming Living Buddha stands on the top of the wind-eroded cliff, in the dark. Cave-set eyes, across the iron-gray clusters of the Yingshan Mountains. Foam, staring at the east. Wandering around in the wilderness, looking for the two reincarnated wildflowers. During the process of reunion, Chao Luoming faced the rising of the sun and the Shen Luo meditated. He wants to get the artistic conception from the source of life. In the changes of life, comprehend the enlightenment about the cycle of life. However, I have never found that kind of revelation, but I realize that the two sentiments are completely different. A completely different philosophy. The artistic conception of sunrise is a kind of burning brilliance. The philosophy of male creation, which seems to belong to ancient times. In the Mongolian heroic epics that rise occasionally, the philosophy of sunset seems to be in the desolate reality of the Mongolian nation calls for some kind of magnificent destroy. Chao Luoming felt that the sun in the morning light seemed to be reciting to him. A beautiful creative inspiration, which is a metaphor for some kind of specific. A life body with the charm of flames. Moreover, he often felt that only with the bronze-colored gaze of the haughty beast, from the golden, realized in the morning sun that life is just burning brilliantly in nothingness. The momentary passion, his meaning is only in that, with the madness beyond the sky. Run, smashing the gloomy fate, before disappearing into nothingness, create. Belongs to the free destiny of the noble male. He too often feels that only a beautiful boy with a heart as mighty and distant as the wind in the wilderness. That blazing gaze can only be comprehended from the golden morning sun. Shall embrace the burning passion, let the footsteps of fate scornfully from life. Only by trampling over the carrion of rationality can we walk into poetry like wildflowers. The wilderness of life that is as gorgeous and in full bloom can be picked in that wilderness. To the beauty of freedom in life. Oh, this aliosphere in the morning light is the epic of Mongolian heroes. Soul must be the golden morning wind blowing from the aliosphere, bringing the message of wild and unrestrained passion was blown into the ancient Mongolian warriors. Hard heart. Each time in meditation when the sun rises, Chao Luoming couldn't help but have such thoughts. However, but it always made him feel deeply sad. Because he knows that the will that is as brilliant as gold has long been buried in the cold and empty mist of time. Frozen, the belief as hard as iron has long been eroded in the cold wind of fate. Cracks, the burning passion that belongs to the noble male is already born. Withered in the shadow of reason. Although the blazing aliosphere is still in the sky. Rise, that belongs to the glory of the past, it is just a precious and hard memory, but a golden legacy unexecuted. Exhort. And the more touching the memory, the brighter the will, the more tragic and profound. For the shattered philosophies that seem to be cast in gold. In the end, what gushed out of the burning crack was 1,000 years of dark pain. Beauty and poetry always wither after a moment in history, but pain seems to never wither. During the sinking of the sun, Chao Luoming realized another meaning. Environment philosophy. That purple sunset seems tragic in life. A hard passion forged in a deep understanding. Scarred laughter burst out of a long crying and dry heart. Only those who have gone through catastrophes and still keep their souls green can have courage. Embracing the hot purple philosophy is worthy of kissing the charming. The beauty of sorrow. This sinking and freezing of life like a golden chain. The philosophies of heavy brilliance kinked together seem to be calling for a destiny, cast in majestic destruction like the blood of a beast. Nothingness, proudly displayed before nothingness with a wild masculine dance. The beauty and poetry of life, while ignoring the fate of things and living with nothingness. A cold denial of the meaning of life. Of course, Chao Luoming knew, whether it was hidden by sunrise or sunset. The philosophies of metaphors do not conform to the life noumenon confirmed by Buddhism, and they are all the same. The pure white emptiness declared by Buddhism is contrary to it. However, it is impossible to completely get rid of the temptation of the philosophy comprehended from the aliosphere. For, in the overlapping of those two philosophies, in that golden morning sun, overlapping with the purple sunset, he breathed what he was looking for. The scarlet breath of fate, that is the rich and gorgeous beast of freshness. The breath of blood, and decades ago, the person on the cliff of the Argun River. The Mongolian youth whose head was cut off by his lover, with the last sharp. Looking at the details of the entrustment engraved on his heart, it seems that in that bloody, floating in the air, over the peaks of the Ain Mountains carved in the steel blue sky, Chao Luoming saw the blue-gray misty horizon in the east and between the dark green sky, a narrow pale light appeared. Bright, like a frost-covered blade, cut the gap between the earth and the sky. Limit. Gradually, rose flowers seeped out of that ray of pale light. Like pale red, undulating wild grass and black rocks in pale. A purple, desolate horizon looms. In a while. Afterward, vast clouds and seas appeared in the sky like crimson raging waves, huge. The large bronze-colored aliosphere is bathed in the sea of clouds, like an ancient. The noble king was cleansed by the waves of blood. The light red morning wind blowing from the sea of clouds in the sky, blowing across the vast Chilichuan field under the Yinshan Mountains, died by night. The dark blue mist quickly withered in the morning wind, graying to the west. The white sky recedes. Light green fields, silver-gray rivers, taupe farmhouses and the dark green of ancient elms dotting the field. The crowns of the trees are all in the light blue oblique sunlight, bright and presented. The aliosphere seems to have washed away the 1,000-year-old blood-rusted bronze in the sea of clouds. Color, like a splendid wheel of fortune wrought in gold, ascends. Gray blue sky. The crimson color in the sea of clouds in the sky seems also seeps into the cracked rocks on the horizon, and the sea of clouds becomes like snow, as pure as white. From the turbulent sea of clouds stretched out a few lines high into the sky. Silver wisps, the dazzling silvery wisps swaying in the high wind. With a voluptuous and blazing expression, it seems that he wants to hold Zhang Xiangsong's hand. The golden Aliodon rises from the depths of the dome. The slanting sunlight shone into the eye sockets like black holes of Chao Luoming, causing his dry eyes were a desolate, indifferent green. He hoped. Looking at the few silvery clouds stretching toward the brilliant sun, silently. He said, the golden wheel of fortune cannot be retained, because time has a cold heart. There is a huge blue rock not far from Chao Luoming. The boulder protrudes from the edge of the cliff, like a stone that is about to fall toward the cliff. Meteors fall fast in the turbulent clouds. I don't know when. At that moment, a figure in a silver-white mask appeared on the cyan rock. The girl in the ancient dress. She stands on tiptoe, like a poplar tree with a silver pole. Li's body leaned forward slightly in an eager manner, thick and thick. The black hair is like the night dancing in the bright morning light, the flying. The skirt is like a passionate silver dream. Girl slightly. Raising a face as white as spring snow, he is looking directly at the golden color with wide eyes. The aliosphere, eyes as clear as black jewels, appear in the sunlight. Dark purple, the color of a ripe wild fruit full of juice. Burned by the bright sun, the girl's eyes have already flowed out. Tears like golden juice, but she still refused to look away. Looking at the sun. The girl's bright red lips like poppies fluttered with gorgeous softness. Suddenly, as if she was courting the golden sun, she burst out. Uttered a long, blazing cry, and that call floated with a charming. And the fertile wildness swayed and echoed among the steep peaks. Mountain breeze. It seemed to be excited by the girl's cry, and became more urgent, less. The woman's black hair with bright sunshine seems to be covered with bronze. A burning love affair tore apart by the colored wind. Chao Luoming looked at the girl, his desolate heart suddenly floated. A sad shadow passed. For some reason, he felt that the huge rock, dyed scarlet in the morning light, is like a sprawling beast. The altar of blood, and the maiden, as if offering to the golden sun. A beautiful offering of sacrifices. Oh, it's so beautiful, it's desolate. Chao Luoming said silently. Think silently. He couldn't bear to continue looking at the one who seemed to be standing in the scarlet blood. A beautiful girl in the park. So, he lowered his eyes, ready to return. Go to the Sherida temple. However, in Chao Luoming, it is time to turn around and leave. The moment he left, his heart seemed to be suddenly overwhelmed by the girl's silver white. The flames of her skirt fluttering in the wind were burning. He lifted again. Eyes, looking at the girl. His last time has long been erased. The desolate eyes with traces of emotion seemed a little excited. Oh, the fluttering silver-white flame she will be. My white lily? The thought is like a bright scar. Appeared in the silent soul of Koraman. The teenage girl is finally ready to walk down the rock that jets out from the edge of the cliff. Up. However, the eyes she had just moved away from the sun fell on the other side again. On an ostentatious shandan flower. The shandan flower is blooming on that rock. In the cracks on the outside, the wind from the cliff makes the flowers of shandan flower. The branches swayed excitedly, with 6 long and narrow petals, like bright red spurs. The stream gushes out from between the stamens, and then, with an extremely blazing. The posture suddenly bends backward and falls. The girl stared at the shandanua for a while, and a smile appeared on her face. A look of hesitation. She wanted to pluck the flower blooming on the cliff. But I was worried that I would fall into the deep valley below. In the end, the girl still couldn't resist the temptation of the shandan flower, and gently bit her. Holding her red lips, she prostrated herself on the edge of the huge rock, trying her best to push her. Half of the body hangs down to the bottom of the rock, and then slowly moves toward the mountain dandelion. Flower stretched out her arms. Just when her slender fingers are about to touch the swing. When the flowering branches were falling, her body suddenly slid down the cliff outside the rock. Moved a bit. The girl uttered a terrified scream, desperately using her feet. The tip hooked on the ridge on the rock, and when she stopped the body from sliding. At that time, her upper body was already hanging upside down from the lower abdomen. On the outside of the rock. She looked fearfully at the gray clouds below the cliff. After taking a look, I still cut off the flowers of shandanua with trembling fingers. Branch. Then, her toes hooked the cracks and ridges in the rock. Angle, so that the body slowly retracted upwards. Suddenly, she swings hard. After touching the flexible and slender waist like a female leopard, he finally retreated completely. Up the rock. The girl's face was still extremely pale due to the fright just now. White, but her beautiful lips have already fluttered a bright red smile. Laughing, I began to stare at the blooming shandan flower fascinatedly, it seems to be. The look eagerly wanting to make the delicate and beautiful appearance of shandan flowers shine into her eyes. After a while, the girl put the shandan flower in her beautiful. And between the breasts protruding profusely under the clothes, walked down the rock. Stone. At this time, the girl's eyes met with Chao Luoming. Despite the tide, Luoming felt that the girl's eyes were extremely beautiful, those pure and deep black pupils. The charm of the sun is shining on the floor, and there is a bright and charming enchanting charm. Feel. However, Chao Luoming still thought dejectedly, no, this. Not my white lily. Bai Lily's eyes are as beautiful as a colorful phoenix. Long, with the charm of the silver rapids of the Ergun River. And her eyes. Eyes like a deer, with a black fire lit by the golden sun. Hamura, oh, everything can change, but the eyes don't. Change, because the image of the soul does not change. You must be the living Buddha, Chao Luoming, Dad told me. In the sun, there is a spring in your eyes. The girl concentrates. After staring at Chao Luoming's light green eyes for a moment, he happily Sis. Then she explained, "Oh, my father is Tegu. Sis, my name is Cessna. Today, I came to the suburbs with my classmates. My father want me to bring you a letter." Cessna handed a thick envelope to Chao Luoming, and then, finally, as if discerning something, he still looked into the eyes of the old man. Suddenly, Cessna frowned her long eyebrows quickly. Said a little sadly, "But what Dad said is wrong. The eyes are not like spring, but like withering green in the autumn wind. Because so lonely for your eyes, oh, I'm being rude to say that. But, looking into your eyes, I feel sad that you must have. I've been through a lot of pain. You are right, there is only one autumn color in my eyes, one. A piece of green that is withering." Chao Luoming replied in a low voice, his voice weakened like a wisp of gray wind. It vanished. He didn't go on. What? I turned around and walked towards the gate of the Shrine of Shrine. Because he couldn't bear to look at Cessna one more time, from her beauty, it seemed. In the eyes that can make the beast feel distressed, from her shining bright sunshine. In Xinyan's eyes, Chao Luoming felt another beautiful and sad feeling. The metaphor of fate. There is a temple not far from the Sherida Temple located on the cliff. Kadano Apricot Forest. On the hard, bronze-colored branches of the apricot tree, there are green leaves, but clusters of dense and blooming white apricot flowers makes the branches of the almond tree appear rich and heavy. Under the apricot grove is a deep valley wreathed in gray clouds, above the almond groves. It is a pinnacle towering into the clouds. The top of Shifeng is covered with thousands of the ever-changing ice and snow. In the sun, that piece of ice and snow shines dazzlingly. Blue and white light waves. This pinnacle is the highest in the Yinshan Mountains. Peak Benma Peak. It is said that Genghis Khan once stood here, on the top of a stone peak, looking across the world. The steep peak of Galloping Horse Peak, as if in the desolate sky. A galloping horse with its head raised and neighing wildly. On the dark purple cliffs leading to the summit, cloth, full of twists and turns and sharp cracks, those huge cracks seem to be buried in the dry soul of thunder and lightning between the cliffs. Dark blue, light yellow, and scarlet. Red wildflowers sway in the wind between the cracks in the cliff, as if the charming morning that blooms in the withered soul of thunder and lightning. At noon, a group of young men and women dressed in Mongolian costumes walked into the wild apricot forest. They took a bottle of strong from their knapsack. Wine and food set out on the rocky ground in the apricot grove, and then, around, sit together and start a picnic. These young people are all located in Hohhot. A student of Inner Mongolia University in the city, the man is the school polo team. The female is a beauty who majored in dance in the art department. Polo. The members of the team drink in the bold and unrestrained style unique to Mongolian men. Spirits. A young man in a pale yellow Mongolian robe drinks heavily. While drinking strong wine, he explained the saber-chopping technique to the polo team members. The young man's name is Gara, a third-year student in the history department. He is the captain of the school polo team. One of the important things he organized was the polo team. The purpose is to train a team proficient in saber chopping. 4. To prevent any possible violent rebellion against communist rule. To resist, the security authorities did not allow civilians to conduct saber hacking training. It is particularly sensitive to the Mongols conducting such training. Take the polo team. As a cover in the name of the police, you can avoid the surveillance of the security authorities. In the eyes of the polo players, bloodshot from drinking, flickering. With a dignified and fanatical expression, he listened to Gara's explanation. Those ants. The figure of the girl shows the graceful and seductive beauty that dancers only have. Modality, walking among the polo team players, pouring spirits continuously in the wine bowls of the fierce polo team players, while they are gentle and affectionate. His eyes are like the bright wind blowing with the white and delicate fragrance of wild almond blossoms. From time to time, it passed over Gera's face. Gera's face is very thin, so thin that it reminds one of the wastelands. On the hungry gray leopard, in the white shadow of almond blossoms, his eyes. Bronze-colored, stern, and haughty in his hard eyes. Look, his thin lips had a sharpness, like a sword. Scars cut on the rock. Cessna did not go into the apricot grove with her companions, she always. Sitting with a young man on a lonely pear tree outside the apricot grove. Down. White flowers bloomed on the branches of the sorrel tree, but yes, that is another kind of whiteness that is different from the apricot blossom mood. Apricot. The whiteness has a charming and gorgeous feeling, like the white blood in full bloom. Traces, while the pear blossoms show a sentimental sentiment, like blooming flowers. Worry. The young man with Cessna is called Tuman, who is already 29 years old. His occupation is a dancer of the Inner Mongolia Song and Dance Troupe, however, he is not dancing, but poetry in Mongolian young men and women. Won a reputation. He wrote many poems, but none of them were allowed. Su made it public because the Cultural Inspection Agency of the authorities believed that his poems have obvious national separatist tendencies. However, his manuscripts of the poetry anthology, but among the people, especially Mongolian, widely circulated among students. Recently, Tuman was selected by the Inner Mongolia Song and Dance Troupe. Selected by Alatonkang, the dance drama director, and the dance drama Hunter and the Boy. Woman as the leading actor, this is the first time he has become a dance drama. At the moment, he is talking to Cessna about taking her for a few days. Going to see the dance drama director Alatonkang. Cessna has studied for 3 years in the art department of Inner Mongolia University. 2019, the internship before graduation will start this year. Some time ago, the deputy head of the Inner Mongolia Song and Dance Troupe, the famous dancer Wu Yun, recommended color. Sina stars in The Hunter and the Maiden as her topics for graduation practice. Tuman has a Pushkin-style beard and a slightly pale face. White, sensitive dark gray eyes, melancholy and fiery. See Cessna. My first impression of him was that he was not like a dancer, but more like a dancer. Like a poet. Although his body is very well proportioned, as male dancers, on the other hand, appear thinner, slender, and not tall enough, lacking a sense of masculine strength. For this reason, Cessna felt a little puzzled. She didn't know why the director chose Tuman as an actor. However, what Cessna cares about now is not at all. It's a ballet. Although what Tuman told her was only the plot and choreography of the ballet. Alatonkang's character, but Cessna seemed to be listening to Chishin. As if talking about passionate love, she lowered her head slightly, and her cheeks were full of charm. The blush, the tender smile on the beautiful lips, and her turbulent eyes, with a brilliant and enchanting expression, always come from. The corner of his eyes drifted to Jela in the wild apricot forest not far away. With his poetic sensitivity, Tuman quickly understood the secret in Sina's heart. She wanted to hurt Gera's heart. The door thought so, and he felt that he was very willing to help this beautiful girl. Therefore, whenever Gera's stern gaze occasionally turned to. As they watched, Tuman quickly brought his lips to Cessna's. The pinny of the ear are white, and the tenderness of infatuation is revealed on the face. And Cessna will. Turning his head slightly, with a grateful expression, he gave a sad expression to. He smiled brightly. However, as soon as Gera looked away, too, the door also immediately avoided his lips from Cessna's ear. Because, for the purple wild clover flower-like breath wafting from Cessna's body. It's so tempting, there seems to be a kind of wilderness in the breath. Means. After a long time, Tuman was afraid that he would not be able to withstand the temptation and die. Can't help but kiss her. He felt that if he kissed, sex, the golden sunshine-like charm in Sina's eyes, will appear in an instant. With her in space, that would be cruel, too cruel for poetry. Up. Tuman had no ill will towards Gera. Many friends have spoken to Tuman and Gera with his chivalry in Congo. Because of his daring personality, he has become the object of worship of many Mongolian youths. Tuman. There have also been a few times when he has watched Gera from the sidelines in public. Grid. La's strong and handsome demeanor made Tuman feel that La was like a songwriter. The masculine poem carved by the bright red thunder and lightning on the bronze-colored rock, and good. It is like a beautiful relic of the noble temperament of ancient Mongolian warriors. However, Tuman never got acquainted with Gera. He feels drawn to. People's gazes are too arrogant, which makes people feel a sense of being overwhelmed. The feeling of looking down, and Tuman does not want to be in that kind of gaze while being. Get acquainted with Gera while looking down. The more he appreciates Gera, the less he wants to. Meaning. At this time, Tuman noticed that Gera was shaking her wide legs slightly. Shoulders walked towards him and Cessna from the wild apricot grove. Gera's gait. It is as proud and elegant as a male leopard walking in the wilderness. Therefore, figure. He held his breath and tried his best to resist the temptation of Chestina's body breath. Bewildered, she leaned her face toward her neck as white as a young birch tree. Neck. Hey, poet. Gera stopped in front of Tuman and Cessna. A cruel and cold smile appeared on the thin lips, mocking. Said nonchalantly, I used to like your poems very much. However, if you hang out with women all the time, your poems will be sissy. Up. No, I found poetic inspiration in Cessna's eyes. Feeling, that is a brilliant poem belonging to Mongolian beauties, that is golden too. Yang's soul. Tuman stood up from the ground, calmly and firmly. Said in a hard tone. Gera's eyes narrowed slightly, which made his gaze become as sharp as a cold, sharp blade. He too. Tuman stared at it for a moment, then said sternly, the real poetry is not in women's poetry. In the eyes of people, but on the top of the mountain. You dare to mount a galloping horse. B, where Genghis Khan once stood, recite your poems. You dare? Tuman stared straight at Gera's cold eyes like iron without any hesitation. Eyes, still calmly said, I have meant this for a long time. I guess. You must be willing to join me on board the Galloping Bee. Finish, Tuman. He turned around and strode towards the dark purple cliff under the Benma Peak. Wait a minute, drink this. Gera's sharp lips. With a grim smile on his face again, he stopped Tuman and poured a bottle of strong. The wine was passed to him. At this time, Tuman discovered that every hand of Gera each holds a bottle of spirits. Tuman hesitated, then, with a tragic mood took over the bottle. Gera raised the bottle in the other hand to his mouth, revealing wild. With wolf-like dazzling white teeth, he gently bit off the metal bottle cap. Tuman also wanted to bite off the cap of the wine bottle with his teeth, but he tried hard. Several times without success. Gera's icy mocking gaze made the figure. The door was enraged, and he let out a sullen growl, ignoring all. He bit the bottle cap fiercely, and then he sprayed a puff of water from his mouth. Blood mist, a bottle cap, and a broken tooth fall along with the blood mist. Down. Tuman raised his head tragically and took a sip of the whole bottle of spirits. Air poured into his mouth. In an instant, his pale face had become dark red, like limestone in the sunset. Tuman slams the wine. Bottles shatter on stones, dark gray eyes burn like lightning. The burning clouds, shining with blazing light, proudly greeted Gu. Ari took a look, then he turned and ran towards the cliff, along the. Following a wind-eroded crack, he quickly climbed up. Just now, when Gera came over, Cessna followed Tuman. We stood up together. She tried her best to restrain herself and did not try to dissuade. Tuman accepts Gera's challenge, because she felt that if she said to dissuade, Tuman will suffer disgrace. At the moment, she worries. And looking nervously at Tuman, who has climbed the cliff, anxiety, yes. Worrying about Tuman, nervous because she felt that Gera was watching her from behind. Your poet will fall off in a moment, and he will start trembling. Gerla clenched her solid teeth and said coldly, "If that's the case, I'll cover his broken body with apricot blossoms. Body, guarding his spirit for life. Because he died for me." Color. Sina's pair looked somber in the deep blue shadow of the thick lashes. And eyes, still staring at the cliff, said with a slightly trembling voice, However, after she finished speaking, she immediately felt a sense of confusion because of her own words. Naturally sad. She didn't know why she would say Tuman. Words of the eternal vigil. Gera raised the bottle with a stern expression and drank it in silence. Use up. Cessna felt that Gera's silence burned like a black flame. People, so that her white nostrils oozed a layer of fine crystal clear beads of sweat. Gera strode towards the cliff without saying anything more. It seems that he is not climbing, but between the cracks and stone edges of the cliff, leaping up and down. It didn't take long before he caught up with the already climbed. Go to Tuman in the middle of the cliff. The hem of the pale yellow Mongolian robe of Jela is crazy, floating wildly, as if to be swept through the sharp cracks in the rock. Like the wind tore it apart. Suddenly, a rock is about to jump up in Gera. The feet collapsed, and Gera's body immediately began to sink downwards. Cessna let out a shrill cry, and ran desperately down the cliff. The moment his body slid down, Gera moved with a beast-like. The sense of agility stretched out its arms and grabbed a bunch of shrubs growing between the cracks in the rocks. Wood. His body swayed in the air for a while, and he quickly searched for it with his toes. Found a stone ridge, stood firmly among the cliffs again, and at the same time, he glanced down quickly. Seth has run to the bottom of the cliff. Now found that the hard coldness in Gera's eyes was broken. It seems that because of the experience of danger, his eyes sparkle with beauty and ecstatic light. Oh, maybe he did it on purpose, to crush a rock beneath his feet so that he could cling to the danger. Color. Sina thought angrily. However, she immediately felt that because of the experience, there is something in the taste of a dangerous and ecstatic man that she can't help but understand. Something deeply obsessed with. Cessna's pair is used to looking directly at the golden sun. Eyes, at the moment, seemed to be unable to bear some brighter than the sun. Narrowing the color, she gazed at Grena in the gray-blue blast. The light yellow Mongolian robe fluttering in the sky is like staring at a purple, a golden enigma above the blue cliffs. Tuman's body trembled in a burst of fatigue. Come. His eyes crossed the hideous protruding purple-red rocks upwards. Looking out, the gloomy clouds torn by the high-altitude wind from the rushing rush over the top of the cliff made him feel that the wind eroded. The cliff seemed to be falling back silently. Tuman hangs down in a panic. Eyes, looking from the side of the body to the ground, seemed to want to see from the big, looking for a sense of solidity on the ground. However, the misty fog below, the apricot forest and the figure of Cessna covered by the air looked so strange, alive and unreal, as if fading away in withering time. Dark memories. Tuman discovered with horror that his life had suddenly changed. It was as empty as a dark winter wasteland, save for one cold, pale loneliness shuddered. He tries to keep going up, climb up, but the stiff limbs seem to be frozen in that loneliness, like unable to move. Tuman had to hold the rock tightly with his fingers. The sharp edges and corners of the crack, due to excessive force, the nails become It's blue-gray. He felt the wisp of ice from his fingertips. The cold pain is the best way to connect his soul with the world. The feeling of the last ray of life, but the sharp wind is like a rusty. The chainsaw cut cruelly at the fragile pain. Yes, he concentrated all his strength on his fingers, desperately trying to. Grabbing the wisp of dry pain, he immediately discovered that the pain is rapidly disappearing irreparably from the numb fingers. Lose. My life is falling like a dead leaf, oh. Dead leaves can be so heavy. Tumun desperately. I closed my eyes and thought sadly. Hey, why are you pressing your body so tightly? It's a woman's breast. Tumun suddenly overheard Gera's mocking words. Voice. He reopened his eyes and saw a little way up the side. Gera. Gera's boots on a cracked rock, eh? One hand grabs a wild hawthorn tree growing in a crack in a cliff, the other. Shake a bright red shandan flower. The width of his pale yellow Mongolian robe. Floating unrestrainedly among the ferocious rocks, like brilliant male laughter. The swift wind seemed to tear him off the cliff. However, he still tilted his body indifferently. Outside the cliff. Can you write poetry now? Gera asked mockingly again. Tumun was not angry at Gera's words, on the contrary. He felt that Gera's sharp voice immediately shattered the coldness in his heart. Loneliness, at this moment, he doesn't need anything, just needs to be real. To hear human voices. Tumun looked at Gera, the hopeless terror in his eyes gradually withered, and the eyes became blazing again. Tumun thinks a little. After searching for a while, he began to chant the words in a pale but scorching voice. The verse that springs from his heart, the solitude on the cliff makes my body trembles, but my brave heart still longs for the wind and the clouds. Clinging to the cold rock, I will dissolve life into the cracked suspension. Cliff, because Holy Lord Genghis Khan once stood on the cliff. On the cliff, with the gaze of a noble and ferocious beast, he looked at the world from a distance. From the deep valley next to the Galloping Horse Peak, dark purple gushes out. Ominous clouds. The dense thunderstorm cloud form is hideous and frightening. Rolling fast, in the dark gray wind, towards the cliff of the Galloping Hornets. Coming. Gera stared at the dark purple thunderstorm cloud for a moment, eyes. A wary light flashed in his eyes. He threw away the shandan in his hand. Hua bent down, grabbed Tumun's shoulder, and quickly said, Quick, I'll pull you up. No, let me go, I will go up by myself. Pale even more for being insulted. The storm is coming. Gera still grabbed Tumun's shoulder. Head, and briefly explained a sentence coldly. Tumun shook his shoulder vigorously, but could not get rid of Ge's pull hand. So, he stared firmly into Gera's eyes. With a violently trembling voice, he shouted angrily, Let me go, otherwise I'll jump, I'd rather die. The mocking smile faded from Gera's lips. He let go. With the hand on Tumun's shoulder, his sharp eyes looked at Tumun for a moment. Suddenly he said with concern, Okay, but you have to be quick. Jumping between the cracks in the cliff, he quickly climbed up. The group of Inner Mongolia University students has been watching with great interest. Watching Gera and Tumun climbing on the cliff. When they found the ball. When the menacing thunderstorm clouds are rushing towards the cliffs, even those fierce. The polo players also showed nervous expressions. Next to Cessna. A girl whose eyes were as mysterious as fog suddenly trembled with fear. In a low voice of fear, he said incoherently, The gods will kill him with thunder and lightning. We are here, my grandpa said that Genghis Khan watched from afar on the Banma Peak. After the world, the gods sealed the mountain with thunder and lightning, and no one was allowed. Let's go up because there is a secret to conquering the world on that peak. My grandfather was a shaman in his youth. Cessna moved swiftly towards the dark purple that seemed to have been burned by lightning. Yun Tuan glanced at it, and she felt that the trembling girl beside her. The voice injected scarlet fear into her heart. However, when she, beholding Grena again like a golden maze at the height of the cliff, when I saw the figures floating around, I suddenly had a thought. Law, if the thunder and lightning want to split the golden fan, I will. You can see what the answer to the mystery is, but... Cessna immediately felt that her thoughts were cruel and heartless. Yes, at this moment, she should be worried about Gera's safety. However, she could not free herself from that thought no matter what. Dark purple thunderstorm clouds rushed into the cliffs like waves of blood. Suddenly, the wind-eroded cliffs seemed to be battered violently by turbulent thunderstorm clouds. I was shocked violently. Tortured and sharp lightning tore through the clouds. The scarlet blinding cracks opened, and the bronze thunder was like a steep rush. My phone was roaring crazily. Cessna clenched her beautiful lips tightly with her white and fine teeth. Red lips, dark eyes glistening with light blue tears. She is made of. Saddened by the burning clouds that hid Gera's figure. Because, even if thunder and lightning split the golden enigma, she cannot see the thunderstorm. The answer to the mystery of burning in the clouds. Gera finally climbed the cliff. In the initial note toward the summit, Insight, his face immediately became extraordinarily solemn. The highest point of Benma Peak is a steep rock, covered in rocks. The ice and snow on the stone present a rich and brilliant pure white, like a tenderness that never melts. A great steppe condor is crouching. On the rock, the sharp eagle eyes seem to be charmed by some mysterious beauty. Bewildered, he gazed at the southern sky. The wind blew the iron-gray feathers of the prairie condor, causing a dark blue wave of light is burning. The prairie condor seems to be. Under the sharp claws of Cheng Cheng, he grabbed a blue-gray male wolf and the body of the male wolf. The body has been torn, and the scarlet blood that flows from the wound. Traces, falling on the ice and snow covered with blue-black rocks, just like gorgeous pain froze in white tenderness. Gera went to the top of the peak, perhaps because he couldn't bear to crush the quilt. The low sky dyed blue silence, his steps never as soft as it is now. However, the prairie condor was still shocked. Moved. Slowly and majestically it turned the sharp eagle's head, golden. A grim gleam flashed across his eagle eye, meeting Gera's stern gaze. It was as if the golden thunderbolt collided hard with the sharp blade. Together. The prairie condor stared at Gelov for a moment, as if from Gelov. In the same piercing eyes, Lara felt that he was also his kind. So, the giant eagle turned back slowly and continued to wander into the distance. Look into the distance. The thunderclouds that had just been billowing between the cliffs below had, after being torn apart by the mighty mountain wind, it turned into long golden snakes. Cloud wisps swayed and floated towards the Chilichuan field in the south. Only dazzle. In the lavender mist around Benma Peak, it seems that there are still some. The aftertaste of thunder and lightning. Gera looked in the direction where the prairie condor was watching, and he saw, in the vast clouds of the sky looms a beautiful blue streak. Chimhong, that is the outline of the earth. After the gray-blue mist. On the surface, the heliosphere is like a wheel of fortune cast in bronze, engraved there. Above the deeply curved silhouette of the earth. In the distant silence. Finally, the prairie condor slowly stirred up the sunshining, iron-gray. With long heavy wings, he flew to the sky, as if to reach the bronze-colored. To find a place to live in the heliosphere. Gera looked at the outline of the blue earth, his eyes twinkled. With obsessive and crazy joy, he felt that the arc, the deep and graceful edge of the earth, seems to be flowing with the charm of the blue sky. The edge of the Mongolian sword and an irresistible charm are like a boundless. The vast sea of clouds poured into his heart. He wanted to be in that beautiful frontier. Bronze kisses remain on the blade. Oh, when Genghis Khan looked at the world, he must have. Wanting to kiss the azure blade hard, it is this kind of firmness. The longing for a hard kiss made Genghis Khan crush the blood with his iron hooves. Thousands of miles of waves to pursue the edge of that day. Gra excited. Thinking. At this time, he heard Tumon floating behind him reciting the psalm. The sound of, "Oh, the edge of the earth that appeared in the clouds. You are the call of the fate of freedom as wild as fire. You are the testament of the epic blood of heroes. You are forever in the sight of the purple wind blowing. Now, you are the blue charm. You are the ultimate pursuit of a handsome and beautiful life. Oh, thy blue is so beautiful. Beauty that enchants the heart of beasts. Why is your blue so barren? Crimson tears flow from the heart of iron and stone. If the horizon is covered with steppe snow, if the verdant birch tree's greenness shakes from the life's extremity, if on the edge of the earth gorgeous wildflowers are blooming in thunder, blooming among electrosplit rocks, if the gray-blue wind on the Mongolian plateau blows from that great destiny, blown at the call of, if the majestic Mongolian soul burns on that blue blade, flame dance, that blue charm will no longer be desolate. Oh, to make the blue horizon no longer desolate. Genghis Khan's golden gaze he snatched from the sun, sent to the sky, where the eagle's gaze flits. Everywhere heroic love blooms. Noble poetic blooms everywhere. Gira has been looking at the horizon without looking back. But he was deeply moved by the voice of Tumon reciting the psalms. Because the sound undulates like a sword slashing on a hard purple sunset. Rhythm. Gira felt that Tumon also had a fiery mang. Ancient soul. Tumon's chanting finally fell like a dignified sunset over the precipice. In the silence on the summit, Gira is still staring at the sky obsessively. Sighed. After a while, his voice was still grim and said, "I never against you for your poetry."